right, it's 5 minutes after, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. How y'all doing? I'm glad that you're here. We're gonna talk about budgeting today. I'm not sure, but I want to see from the comments how many of you all tackled your homework. As difficult as it was, did you take a look at your finances? Good morning, Aunt Robin, all the way from the West Coast, up and at 'em early. Thank you for being here. So, did y'all do your homework? Did you look at your finances for February? The task was twofold. The first was to make a SMART goal. That is a goal that is specific, that is measurable, that's attainable, relevant, and time bound. If you have questions about how you can make a SMART goal, you can go back to my page. I provided an exercise for how to identify a SMART goal and how to create one of your own. The second homework assignment was to take a look at your spending for the month of February and to categorize them based on the types of expenses. Types of expenses include, sorry, I gotta get my list. All right, health insurance, if you pay it out of pocket, your shelter, your mortgage, or your rent, food, transportation, including in car insurance, gas, and maintenance, child care, utilities, gas, electric, water, even Wi-Fi, I would say, is a utility these days. And then your other, whether you go and get your nails done or you get your hair cut, go to the spa, any extracurricular activities, if you go to sporting events, your cable, your cell, your savings, and investments. We're supposed to identify how much you're spending in each one of those buckets. If you've done that, you are well prepared for a conversation about budgeting. But if you didn't, if you are new to this live, this will still be beneficial for you. So we're going to talk about some different types of budgets, how to calculate those percentages, going back to elementary school a little bit. And then I'm going to give you a couple tips and take some questions. So let's get this thing rolling. So how many of you have heard of different types of budgets? Hit me in the comments. Let me know what types of budgets you've heard about in the past. Good morning, Kiana. Good morning, Teresa. Glad y'all here. Aunt Robin, shame on you for not getting your homework done. Y'all hit me in the comments. Let me know if you've heard of any types of budgets. The last time we were together, one of the budgets that you had heard about or was prevalent, and I would say it's probably prevalent in the faith community, and that is the 10-10-80 budget. Anybody heard of it? I had some really pretty slides for y'all today, but technical difficulties are going to prevent me from showing them to you. But I did prepare. Anybody heard the 10-10-80 budget? This is where you have 10% to God in your tithing and or charity, 10% for savings and investment, and then the rest is the 80%. Now, this is one that I grew up on, and it has its place. I think it's a great starter budget, but I don't think that is the end game. I think the pros to a 10-10-80 budget is that it's simplistic and it's easy to follow. You get paid, you pay yourself 10%, you pay 10% in your tithes and or charitable giving, and then the rest is yours to seemingly spend. And I think that is the part of the 10-10-80 plan that I'm not gung-ho for. It gives the impression that 10% is all that you need to save, and that the 80% is up for reckless spending. And that's the part that I think is a con for the 10-10-80 program. But again, it is a great place to start. So if you have never budgeted before and you just kind of live your life like it's golden every time you get paid, then the 10-10-80 is a place to start. All right. Hey, Dennis, how you doing? Or two, as I like to say. Glad you're here. All right, so that's the 10-10-80 budget. Again, a great starter budget. Another budget type is the 50-30-20 budget rule. Now, this budget rule says that there's 50% that should be allocated for your needs, 30% for your wants, and then 20% for your savings, investment, in debt. If you wanted to take that and apply your tithing to it, then you would split it out. I hope you guys have pen and pencil. I sent out a quick story saying that you guys should have a pen and pencil. So the 50, 30, 20, I'll repeat that. It's 50% for your needs, 30% for your wants, 20% for savings and investment. If you need to make room for tithing in that plan, you would still allocate 50% for needs, 20% for wants, 20% for savings, and 10% for tithe. That's 100%, right? That's where we need to be. Got to have a whole pie. So I'm going to put this in the comments real quick before I move on. Any questions thus far? Put them in the comments. All right, then we have, I just put it in the comments. That way, if you haven't written it down, you can always reference this. The 50, 30, 20. Again, that is your needs, your wants, savings, and investment. Now, I like this plan because it allocates 20% to saving and investment. And again, if you need to split that out, you still would have 50% for your needs. You'd have 20% for your wants, 20 for your savings, and 10% for tithe. All right. Now, the third one is the 70, 20, 10. 70, 20, 10. 70, 20, 10 says that 70% is allocated to all expenses, 20% to savings and debt, and then 10% is your tithing and charitable donations. Now, I do like this plan. I call it like the graduated level plan because the 20% savings and debt. You've moved from the 10, 10, 80. You're no longer saying that 10% is enough for you to save. You've moved up to a 20%. Now that's something that happens over time utilizing discipline, right? So budgeting is all about discipline. So you have to have something in black and white that you can follow, because if you aim at nothing, you are sure to hit every time. So you're going to have to buckle down and just start somewhere. Again, I think that a great place to start is the 10, 10, 80 plan. So how do you calculate all these percentages, right? If you've done your homework, then you have the numbers right in front of you. If not, I'll just tell you how to do it. So you would take all of your needs. This would be your housing, your food, your utilities. If you pay health care out of pocket, or any other insurance that you pay out of pocket, whether it be life insurance and or car insurance. Total all of that up and you put it in your calculator, that total divided by your total income. All right, total expense divided by your total income will give you the percent. If you've done your homework, I want you to go ahead and calculate those percentages and determine if you're out of whack. And if you're out of whack anywhere, when you evaluate your spending categories and you find yourself out of bounds and you think this was not just February, I'm not out of whack just because it was Valentine's Day or because somebody's birthday came by, hint, hint, my coach, then you need to cut back. It's plain, it's simple, it's very simple, but it's sometimes difficult. You're going to have to make some hard choices and just cut back. Make the hard decisions, go back to your SMART goal, Remember why you're doing what you're doing. This should be your take-home pay. So Teresa posted a good question. I'm talking about an assessment based on what you take home. This is not your gross. So everything you do should be based on what it is you bring home after Uncle Sam has taken his piece. Now, I realize that everybody is not going to agree, and everybody is not a part of the faith-based family. But I really would encourage you to consider donations to a charitable organization and or to your church through tithing. I've been tithing to my church ever since. It was something that's been ingrained in my upbringing, and I recognize that that is not the case for everyone. But I will say that for those of you that are believers and you struggle with tithing, that our God is generous, and 10% is very little as compared to what he gives, and you get that back 100-fold. So I really do encourage you, if you've been off track and you do believe in tithing, to make your way back to the point where you are tithing consistently. I think that there's a blessing in that. If you are not a tither, I do encourage you, just as a person, a fellow person in the human race, to find something that you care enough about to support financially, whether that is a college fund, whether that is other charitable donations, or take that 10% and put it towards your kids' big expenses, right? We definitely know that when we have families, we want to put our children in the very best position that they can possibly be in. And so with that 10% bucket, you can either tithe, you can donate to a charitable organization, or start putting money away for, maybe it's a wedding for your children, or their college fund, or maybe it is just you're an adult now and I want to give you a really good start. Maybe it's their first down payment on a home. Put some money away for your children. All right, so back to the calculation. Again, it is based on the total amount that you have in that bucket for your needs. Again, that would be your housing, your utilities, any insurances. That's your need bucket. Your want bucket, I think it's kind of questionable whether or not a cell phone and cell phone and Wi-Fi, are they needs, are they wants? Y'all tell me. Tell me what y'all think in the comments. When I calculated it for my house, I put cell phone in the needs bucket because we don't have a house phone. So how else would we communicate? I will say that if push came to shove, we would get rid of our cell phones and perhaps go with a prepaid option if we needed to downsize in that area. When it comes to Wi-Fi, if you guys are thinking about, like, how can I pare down my expenses? When I looked at my February spending, I know that it reflects every month, and every month is tight. I got to figure something out. In a post-COVID world, consider pooling your resources. Maybe internet is a need, but do you need to have it and your mama need to have it? Maybe one of y'all have internet and the house be open for when that need arises, right? So that we can save. Or do you really need cable, or do you watch 3 different channels? Because if you watch 3 different channels, then you probably should be looking into a streaming option. Cable is very expensive, especially when even when it's bundled with a phone or an internet service. It's very expensive, and streaming has provided a way out that you really, really, really should consider. So I'm looking at the notes, and a lot of you are saying that in this day and age, cell and Wi-Fi are in fact necessary, and I agree with that. And so when I calculated my needs, I did in fact include my cell phone bill and our Wi-Fi. And in the interest of transparency, when I looked at my house, it was 51% needs, 13% wants, 26% in the savings and investment piece, and 10% to tithe. So I'm very proud to say that I am in fact leading the way, walking the talk as it relates to budgeting. We're doing all right. We could be doing better. And I say that because we have some SMART goals that we really do intend to meet by the time bound piece that I emphasize. And so there's some growth that needs to happen there. And I really, really, really encourage you. You can't get better if you don't acknowledge where you are. And so you really, really do need to do the homework and take a look at what your spending has been, especially if you can, because you use a debit card or a credit card. You can go back and look at your history very easily. It's just a matter of taking the time to do it. Now, if you are a cash person already, then you can't exactly look at your history, but you do need to track your spending from now through the month of March vigorously. I used to be a stickler about this. I was the person that wouldn't leave the line at the grocery store until I had written it down in my check ledger. My friends can attest. I would be at a restaurant and we finished eating, and I wouldn't leave the restaurant table until I wrote it down. And so you have to be very meticulous and intentional about the changes that you want to make for the betterment of you and or your family. Teresa said, cable we need Jesus, and are seeking out other options. Yes, please seek out other options. Streaming is so much cheaper. Miss Mary said that Wi-Fi is a need, but multiple paid streaming options are a want. I agree 100%. It would be the first thing to go in my book if we had that need. And my husband might say something different. He needed to have ESPN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So, sorry, Keith. Taking a look at the comments. Thank you all for being so vocal. I appreciate that. So, are there any questions or about how to calculate the percentages? You need to be able to evaluate where you are against one of the 4 budget types that I've given as as options for you. Again, the beginner level is the 10-10-80. That is 10% in charitable giving, whether that be tithe or to an organization, 10% savings and investment, and then 80% is for the rest. Very simple. Next option, I would call it a step up, would be the 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and investment, and debt. I should have said that. That 20% savings, investment, and debt, that is, debt should always be included, and we'll get to that in a moment. Again, if you're going to look at that second tier, and you are a part of a faith-based community, then you'll want to split that out to say 50% is still allocated for my needs, but I'm going to trim my wants to 20%. 20% is for savings, investment, and debt, and then 10% for tithe. All of it still ties out to 100%, one full pie. And then lastly, the graduated level, as I would call it, would be the 70% for all expenses, 20% for savings and or debt, and then 10% for tithing and donations. Now, you might say, well, Tiana, there's not much of a difference between any one of these plans. Well, you're kind of right. 10%, the 10-10-80 plan is meant to get you in the habit of just knowing where you are with respect to your expenses and making an allocation, a concerted effort to donate or charitable giving, to give, to save, and then spend. That's a 10-10-80. The next step says I'm going to be even more meticulous. I am going to restrict my wants to no more than 20% of my income. That's why there's a difference there. Instead of being willy-nilly with the 80% of the spending, I'm going to make sure that my wants are contained. And then after that, the 70-20 is once you've gotten in the groove of being very specific about and intentional about how you spend your money, you can go back to all expenses being in the 70% because now you're in a position, having worked a muscle that you're not used to, you're in a position to now save 20%, which is an upgrade from the 10% before. All right. Aunt Robin said there's an app called the Daily Cost, a quick money tracker, which is a quick segue. There are a couple of different places. I was saving that for the end, but I'll throw it in there now and repeat it later. There are a couple of different mechanisms through technology that you can use to help you out. One would be Fudget, Fudget. Another is Moola. Another is Mint, Mint. And then also too, your bank websites have come out with a lot of different tools that will help you out. So I'll come back to that later about the use of technology in our journeys. Teresa says, I took cash out of the ATM. I don't remember why I took it out. I probably spent it on fast food. See, that cash thing can be good and it can be bad. So we talked about the different budgets. We've talked about how to calculate it. Now I want to talk about, talk you through some recommendations that I have. The first is something that you probably don't hear very much, but I would say that you do need to live paycheck to paycheck. Crickets. Usually you hear people want to get away from living paycheck to paycheck. I would argue that you need to identify and account for every red cent that comes through your hands. Be faithful over a few things before you can be ruler over much, okay? So you need to live paycheck to paycheck. This is otherwise known as a zero-based budget. I really wish I could show my screen right now because I will post these to my page afterwards so you can actually see it. But with a zero-based budget, what you would do is you would take your total income. Let me just pull it up for me so I can itemize some things. Let's say your total income is $3,000 for the month. And what you would do is you would itemize every single expenditure until you're down to nothing. So maybe it's $1,000 in rent, so now you have $2,000 left. Then you spend $250 in groceries, you got $120 in utilities, so on and so forth. The hope is that at the end of that list, you've got some money left over. So then the question is, how much money do I need to live on? And the rest of it needs to go somewhere. Prayerfully, hopefully, into a savings account of some kind. I hope that makes sense. I want to see some comments in there just to make sure I can reiterate or answer any questions anybody might have about living paycheck to paycheck. It basically means that you are going to itemize every red cent that comes into your hands. You're going to know where that money is going and why. It requires planning. I recommend that you review your budget. So here's my second recommendation. I recommend that you review your budget every month, so you can account for all of the irregularities that may happen. So if there's a birthday coming up, you can make adjustments for that. If you're planning a vacation, if you know that your hours are going to be short, right? So some of us live or work part-time, or we have fluctuating hours, or we work overtime a great deal. And so our budgets, we've been basing our budgets on the fluctuations of our income. When you have irregularities in your income, maybe you're a waitress and you just don't know if you're gonna have a good day or a bad day, whatever the cause is for your irregularities, your budget needs to be based on your bare bones needs. How much money do I need to have in the door in order to live? That's what your budget should be based on. That way everything else is a bonus of sorts. But even when you have those times where you're living in abundance, you should still be itemizing everything that you spend. Make sense? My second recommendation, so living paycheck to paycheck, identify everything that you spend Every dollar should have a name and it should go where it's supposed to be. The next piece is get off the roller coaster. So one of the things that we had to get straight in our house was the due dates. So part of your homework was to identify what you've spent. It was also to identify the due dates for your regular expenses. Part of the problem is that with our first paycheck, we have to pay so many bills. And so we are essentially out of money as soon as we get paid. So then when we get paid again, we overspend trying to compensate for the fact that we couldn't spend the first time we got paid. How many experienced that? Hit me in the comments. Let me know whether or not the roller coaster has been your life. You pay all your bills on the front end of the month. At the end of the month, you overspend, unfortunately, trying to compensate for that. To get off the roller coaster, you need to know when your bills are due, and you need to take steps by calling those bill collectors and or creditors in an attempt to make it so that when you get paid the first time, you have the same amount going out as you do the second time. That way you're even keeled all month long, all year long. You make $3,000 and about $2,000 goes out the door for your bills. And Teresa says she allocates for her bills, just not the money that's left over. You need to allocate every red cent. Because we don't need all that's left over. If we're blessed enough to have something left over, we probably don't need all that's left over. There's probably a debt that we could be tackling, or some savings and or investments that will make our money work for us. Some goals we can be achieving with that additional money. Little by little becomes a lot, right? Over the course of time. So I did a quick calculation. One of the adjustments that I made in my personal life was that I don't get my nails done every 2 weeks. If you get your nails done every 2 weeks, and let's say it costs about $45, go with even 50. Then it's going to cost you, let me do my math, doggone it, thought I had it. $1,300 a year. But if you only get it done every 3 weeks, it's only about $850 a year. So you save an extra $500 just by making that adjustment. These are the types of things that I want you to be aware of. You can make small adjustments that add up to a lot if you're just intentional enough to really benefit you and your family. Small adjustments make a big deal over time. All right, so the second recommendation was to get off the roller coaster. You command the debts. If you call them and say, you know what, I've been paying you, I'm going to continue to pay you, but I just can't keep paying you on the 7th. I need to pay you on the 20th. That way my bills are even. They'll work with you. Just got to take the step. Know where you are, make the call, make the modification. All right, some more tips are coming. The cash method. So if you tend to overspend because you're just swiping and swiping and swiping, then I have a couple different recommendations for you. You could either set up multiple checking accounts, one checking account for bills and one for wants. That way there's no confusion as to what is available for spending for your house. And you'd have a clear line of sight as to the bills will get paid and your wants would be in a separate account, so you don't have the ability to dip into what should have been bill money. So 2 separate accounts. Another option would be for your bills to remain in your checking account and for you to complete your wants using a credit card. This is something that I've been doing in my house. I think I shared this with you all last week, using a credit card that earns rewards to fuel the spending that the Mister and I do on Amazon. So at the end of a month of just putting what we know would be an expense for us in terms of our wants, whether it be our groceries or our gas, things of that nature, on our credit card, paying the credit card off every 2 weeks. So don't go doing this if you're not going to be disciplined enough to pay the credit card off. I'm not giving the credit card any interest by doing this. They are paying me for the use. There's a big difference there. Don't do this unless you're fully ready. But you can, in fact, leave your bills in your checking account, use a credit card for your other expenses that you're ultimately going to pay, would have anyway. You're going to pay it off anyway. You'll get the rewards from it, and you're keeping things separate in that way. And then there's also the cash method. Now, utilizing the cash method means that all of your bill money remains in your account. You're paying those using a check or your debit card, online payment, things of that nature. And then you're taking out the amount of money that you have to spend. So whatever it is your wants are for your entertainment and things of that nature, you have cash for that. Your restaurant budget, you have the cash for that. And once it's gone, it's gone. There's something to having $60 in your hand and having to lay all of it down for going out to eat. It's easy to swipe that card. But when you have the cash and it's coming to the end of it, it's harder to shell out that dollar bill. So consider utilizing cash for your wants. It's a way of restricting. When we are going on our financial diet in my house, we go to cash because it's very restrictive, especially when you're cheap like me. And then a couple more tips. One more is the automatic bill pay. Now, some of you are afraid of this, but you shouldn't be. Automatic bill pay does not forget that the bill is due. Automatic bill pay does not get sleepy and forget. And automatic bill pay will not shortchange whomever you're paying. So sometimes we have this bright idea that we're going to pay a little more than the minimum, or we're going to pay it off. And then it comes time to do it, and we're like, but I really would like to get an extra shirt. So I'm going to skimp on paying the bill. I'm still paying the minimum, but I'm not paying what I said I was going to pay because I'm going to make room for something else. And we do that in the spur of the moment. An automatic withdrawal does not allow you to do that. So if you said you're going to give a certain creditor an extra $100 a month because you want to pay it off fast, the money is going to be taken out. It's a part of your budget anyway, and you don't have the time to kind of negotiate or take back on what you committed to do. Does that make sense? So really, really, really consider automatic bill pay. Even if you don't do it for all of your bills, do it for some of them. Also, this is going to impact your credit positively because utilizing automatic withdrawal is going to ensure that the bill gets paid and paid on time. You're going to have a good payment history with your creditors. As a result, you're not going to have any dings on your credit going forward. So I really, really implore you to consider automatic bill pay. Like I said, you want to avoid those late fees, and automatic bill pay just does not forget. Any questions? My friend Summer said the cash method does help keep you aware. I would agree 100%. All right, we're coming to the close of our session today. I will say that there's no one size fits all. I hope that you guys come away with that. There's no one size fits all with budgeting. You have to do what's best for you, but the first step is knowing where you are. So if you haven't completed your homework, it is imperative that you do that. All right? Another tip would be to utilize technology. So I listed off a couple of different resources: your bank's website tools, Budget, Moolah, and there was one more in the comments that I cannot find at this very minute, but I will recite them and put them on my page after the live is over. The other tools that you can use are alerts, whether you use them on your checking account or on your credit cards. If you're utilizing a credit card method, you can set up an alert that says, once you hit this amount in spending, send me a text message so I can stop. Utilize those tools to help you make the conscious decision to stay within the budget that you choose. Let's see. One thing I wanted to touch on is couples. Sometimes there's age-old question of whether or not you should have a joint or separate accounts. I would say that there's no one-size-fits-all budget, and there's no one-size-fits-all marriage. It really does have to be a conscious decision between you and your partner. I would say that no matter what you choose, there needs to be transparency between the two of you with regard to your spending, because you inevitably, especially as married couples, have joint goals. And oftentimes you can't achieve them without one another. All right. So some people share household expenses equally. Others of them then I read books, you use cable, you pay the cable bill. I don't have to have it. That's a conversation that you can have. So proportion by usage, proportion by income, or just split it equally. It's really up to you. So I leave you with this. Staying hitched to a budget requires discipline, and that can sometimes be difficult, but it is so rewarding. You can't fix something that you this week, talk about credit and debt next week. One of the pitfalls of budgeting is trying to bite off too much at one time. If you've never been on a budget, again, I think the 10-10-80 plan is the perfect one to start with. Start somewhere and start today. That's the best advice that I can give you. Yes, you may have big goals. Take those big goals and chunk them down into small ones, small bites at the apple. Okay. Again, we've talked about irregular expenses. The best way to tackle irregular income and or irregular expenses is taking a look at your budget at least on a monthly basis. And if you're not a calendar person, tie the review of your budget to something that you enjoy. If Saturday mornings, waking up before everybody else does and enjoying your cup of coffee or your cup of tea is your thing, bring your computer along. Take a look at your budget at least once a month. Married couples, share that coffee together. Make an appointment, a quick date in the morning or an evening date to review where you are and where you've been so you can get where you want to go. All right. And with that, I'll certainly be monitoring the comments throughout the day for any questions I can answer. I'll close by saying that God loves you and that He would that you prosper.